Hi everyone. Over the past few days, the conflict between Iran and Israel has escalated dramatically. Cities across the Middle East, including parts of UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi, have come under direct missile and drone attacks. And similar thing is happening on the Iranian side, perhaps at a larger scale. Now, whenever conflict like these happen, human cost is definitely the most important thing to consider and remember. Wars bring instability, displacement, and losses, and that should never be trivialized. But there is one other reality that wars also reshape the economics of the region. Whenever one region becomes unstable, the capital and infrastructure developments from one region starts flowing into another region which is more stable. And historically, there has been a pattern like this again and again and again. And in this video, we will discuss how the ongoing war in the Middle East involving the UAE, Saudi, Qatar, Bahrain, Iran, Israel, US can ultimately turn out to be beneficial for India in at least three of these sectors. But before we delve in, let's just understand why is the conflict happening and what are the implications of it. So first of all, if you look at the Middle East region, the countries can be categorized into three buckets. The first is the countries that are rich in oil and aligned with the US. So this includes countries like UAE, Saudi, Qatar, etc. Then the second bucket is countries that are internally unstable and are facing radical insurgency. They might be or might not be that rich in oil, but then they are companies which are like there are no signs of development. There is no stability. Human lives do not matter over there. So you can categorize Iraq, Syria, Libya, etc. in this bucket. But there is one third category, which I will say that there is only one country in that bucket, which is it is rich in oil and non-aligned with the US, and that country is Iran. So that explains why Iran just stands out in the Middle East, because it is non-US aligned and is militarily capable with intense asymmetric capabilities in terms of their proxies or their missile arsenals or their drone arsenals, and whatever they have done, they have built everything internally, and that is something which poses a threat to the hegemony of US and Israel in that region, and that explains the hostilities which these countries carry towards Iran and the hostility which Iran carries towards this country. Iran has always viewed US and Israel as the enemies, as the core enemies, and Israel has viewed Iran as an existential threat. So since Iran was very close to getting a nuclear weapon, Israel and US thought that now is the time to go in, because once they get the weapon, it will be very difficult to conventionally invade or soften Iran's power in the region. Now, what are the political objectives of the three parties, major parties that are involved in this conflict? Israel and US are looking forward to a regime change in Iran and softening the military power of Iran. And what is Iran looking at? For Iran, it's just a question of survival. They are looking at an existential crisis. That's why they are pulling each and every country in that region inside the conflict, so that there's a pressure from multiple angles on US to contain this war. Now that we have discussed a brief about this conflict, why is it happening, we'll now cover what can be the potential outcomes of this entire conflict that's happening. So I'll say that there are three scenarios. Scenario one is Iran undergoes a regime change and surrenders. I'll say that this scenario is highly unlikely to happen, because Iran has prepared for this war for 40 years. The way they have structured their military, navy and AV, that's entirely about an asymmetric deterrence to Israel and USA. And I think they were prepared for this. Even the supreme leader was prepared for this. And they have suffered a lot of casualties in the past few days at a senior most level. I don't see a surrender anywhere on the horizon. I don't see a regime change on the horizon, because while USA and Israel will gain a complete dominance on the air and waters of Iran, a regime change is not possible unless and until an army goes into a country and gets the existing regime on its knees. And that's not possible, because if you consider the topography of Iran, which is very mountainous. Iran is a very big country. Their army and Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which is the IRG, the number goes into millions. So to enter a country which is mountainous, which is half the size of India, has millions of IRG and army personnel, it's just not possible, and I don't see that happening. So regime change and surrender from Iran is out of the picture. Scenario 2 is US calls off the operation without militarily softening Iran. Again, I see this scenario also to be very unlikely because US is a superpower, and without ultimately achieving its objective, they cannot just withdraw after going in a matter of a month or 2 months. So this is also not possible. This brings us to the scenario number 3, which I say is the most likely scenario, that US will gain complete air and naval dominance on Iran, but will not be able to land boots in Iran. The existing regime of Iran will continue. Iran will be completely destroyed. The lives of people over there will be miserable, and they will feel that if our lives are miserable, why should Gulf countries have a very good life? Because we are rich in oil, they are rich in oil. If we are living a life like this, why should they get to live a lavish life? So this will turn into a asymmetric guerrilla warfare, rise of insurgency, and you will see randomly strikes happening, drone strikes or nuisance strikes happening on Dubai, Saudi, Qatari, Bahrain, Israel infrastructure in every 2-3 days. I mean, 2-3 days nothing will happen, it will be all peace, and randomly a drone will come and strike some infrastructure, or some on the ground insurgency or militancy will just will come and strike an infrastructure in the Gulf countries. So this, I feel, is the most likely scenario that's going to play out, and if this plays out, India will benefit massively from this conflict. Now again, when I say massively from this conflict, I am not disregarding the human lives that are being lost in the entire Middle East, but that's how wars are. They shape the geopolitics and they shape the economies of a particular zone. So before we get into the further part of this video, a quick disclaimer. This video is strictly for educational and informational purposes. It should not be considered as a financial advice, investment advice, or a buy or sell recommendation. If you have to take any buy or sell call, please do your own due diligence or contact your own financial advisor. So let's discuss the 3 sectors which I believe will be the ultimate beneficiaries in India from the ongoing conflict. Number 1 is data centers and digital infra. Number 2 is crude oil refining. Number 3 is MRO and aviation support systems. And now let's discuss each of these in detail. The first one that we'll cover is data center and digital infrastructure. And why do I say that? Because Iran has already stuck the data centers in Middle East at 2 different occasions, at least 2 different occasions. And with the ongoing situation, I think because the capex of data centers runs into billions of dollars, countries will be very wary of putting up new capacities in Middle East, and they would look at more geopolitically stable regions. And again, if you have to look at a geopolitically stable region that can absorb an infrastructure of that scale, the only alternative they will have is in India. This capacity cannot go to Africa, cannot go to any other nation in the Middle East, will not go to China. India, Southeast Asia is again a bit too far. So India is the closest and geopolitically most stable nation where this infrastructure will go. Now, to just give you some of the numbers, this table covers what is the installed capacity in gigawatts of data centers. So UAE and Saudi currently have 0.8 gigawatt of data center capacity, which was expected to go to 4.5 gigawatts, and this would have meant around 25 to 30 billion dollars of capex. Similarly, India has 1.2 gigawatts of capacity. This was expected to go to 5 gigawatt by 2030, and this again would have been 25 to 35 billion of capex. Now again, whatever I am saying that a shift from Middle East will happen to India, this is subject to this war turning into a long war. Now we will make a separate video on this, who are the ultimate beneficiaries of data center capex in India, and but to just give you how you can play this theme, that Airtel, Reliance, Adani are directly developing the data center campuses. So these are the data center operators. Then you can say Techno Electric, L&T type of companies, they are the data center EPCs. I mean, they will build those campuses for these companies. ABB India, Hitachi Energy, these will give the power systems. Blue Star, Voltas, and other HVAC companies, they will give the cooling systems to these campuses. E2E Infra, NetWeb Technologies, they will give the AI compute hardware, and there can be some real estate plays like Anantraj, etc. Again, we will create a deep dive video in this entire value chain, but these are some of the names which you can start reading from your own end. The second sector that we should be looking at is the crude oil refinery capex, which will again shift from Middle East to India. Now, why do I say that? Again, a drone strike has already happened in Saudi Aramco oil refinery, and I think yesterday even in Abu Dhabi's oil refinery a drone strike has happened. These refineries contain tons and tons of inflammable substances. While they are designed in compartmentalization, that if a fire breaks out in one section, it will not spread to other section. I know all that, but these things are very significant. That a drone striking a oil refinery is very significant. So companies will be wary of doing refinery capex in these areas. And again, just like data centers, refineries are also very high capex intensive. They are built on very complex systems, and India has a proven history of setting up and running very complex and highly capable refineries. So India's Jamnagar oil refinery is the most complex, most technologically capable, and the largest refinery of the world. And India already is, I think, in top 4 or top 5 countries by installed refining capacity. So again, just to give you some numbers, like I said, India is currently number 4 in terms of countries, and number 5 in term, if you include Middle East as a single entity rather than looking at individual countries. So currently the Middle East capex, Middle East was supposed to do around 60 to 90 billion dollars of capex in the next 4 to 5 years for their refinery infra, and India was supposed to do 30 to 40 billion dollars of capex. And I believe that now a large chunk of this 60 to 90 billion dollars capex will flow to India. And historically there have been a lot of talks between the Middle East players and India in terms of setting up refineries. Aramco was looking to set up a refinery in Amravati. Aramco was looking to buy stakes in Reliance refineries, so on and so forth. So they are aware of the capabilities of India. I think this entire conflict will just accelerate the process of shifting the capex from Middle East to India. Which can be the biggest beneficiaries? So direct beneficiaries are companies like Reliance, BPCL, HPCL, who run these refineries. Can be the EPC players like Engineers India Limited, Larsen Toubro, etc. can be a step 2 beneficiary. Equipment suppliers like ABB India, Thermax can be step 3 beneficiaries, and then piping systems like D Development, etc. can be a step 4 beneficiary. Again, we will do a deep dive on this sector, and we will cover this sector in detail in a later video. And the third sector that I believe can benefit from this entire conflict is the aviation MRO facilities. Now, what do you mean by MRO facility? MRO essentially means maintenance, repair and overhaul facility for the aircrafts. So whenever the aircrafts are flying, they need continuous maintenance and safety checks. So for Dubai and for the entire Middle East, this entire sector is quite big, and India is in a very nascent state in this sector. Although now Government of India has declared in their budget as well as in other statements that they are looking to expand this sector vigorously, because 80 to 85% of India's maintenance and repair happens in Middle East. I mean, Indigo planes, they essentially go to Middle East and then they get repaired and maintained over there. They come back and then they work in their everyday routes. Again, an airport of Dubai airport in Abu Dhabi, etc., has been hit by Iranian drones, and this poses a security threat to these assets, because airplanes are very expensive assets. So this is a security threat to these assets. And to give you some numbers, aircraft MRO is currently a $10 billion sector in Middle East. In India, it is hardly $2 billion sector, and this sector in India is set to expand, because even government of India is getting very serious about it. But there is just one constraint in this sector, because geography favors the Middle East. Middle East is exactly midway between Europe and Africa, Europe and India, Europe and Southeast Asia. India does not enjoy that geographical benefit, but still, if India is able to get the market share out of India's own MRO, MRO from Southeast Asia, so that will be a big win for India, and this sector can also accelerate going forward. So this brings us to the end of the video. I think if I have to summarize, it's very unfortunate that this war is going on, and I believe that this war will evolve into a long war, and there will be a geopolitical and economic cost which Gulf countries will have to pay for this war, while the cost of lives in Gulf countries will be incomparable as compared to the cost of lives which Iranians will be giving. And because of this entire thing, these three sectors which I listed will move out and do their capex, do their fresh capexes in India rather than continuing with capex in the Middle East. So, like with every other theory, I think we'll have to give it some time and see how it plays out. And once again, if you like the contents of the video, please do share with your friends and family, like the video, subscribe to the channel. See you next time.